Father, you stole my entire scholarship fund and spent it on a car.
I only helped you use it wisely. Now let us see how you will go to university again.
How does jealousy grow so deep inside a person that they can look their own sister in the eye and feel nothing but satisfaction at her pain? And how did a family that once carried so much love become the very place where one daughter's future was quietly buried? This is not just a story about stolen money. It is a story about sacrifice, betrayal, favoritism, and the devastating price of choosing the wrong child to protect. What happened inside this family shook an entire community and left wounds that took years to heal. But to truly understand how everything collapsed, we must go back to the beginning. Before the betrayal. Before the tears. Before the moment everything changed forever. Before we continue, please subscribe to this channel, like this video, and turn on your notification bell so you never miss our next emotional and life-changing story. In the quiet town of Abeokuta, the Okafor family was once known as one of the most peaceful families in their neighborhood. They were not wealthy, but they had something many richer families lacked, a home where people felt safe. Mr. Emeka Okafor was a secondary school teacher who loved both his daughters with quiet patience. But his wife, Mrs. Ngozi Okafor, saw the world differently. And in that difference, the seed of everything that followed was quietly planted. Ada was the first daughter. Every morning before anyone else was awake, she swept the compound, boiled water, checked her sister's uniform, and still arrived at school before the first bell. Her teachers admired her. Her neighbors praised her. But inside her own home, her efforts were treated as ordinary. Expected. Invisible. Chisholm was different. 2 years younger, she had a beauty that made strangers turn twice. She knew how to smile when she wanted something, how to cry when she needed attention, and how to twist situations until she became the victim. While Ada worked, Chisholm rested. While Ada sacrificed, Chisholm received. And Mrs. Ngozi always found a reason to defend her. One afternoon, Ada stood over a pot of soup in the backyard, sweat running down her face as smoke entered her eyes. From inside the house, she could hear Chisholm laughing with a friend, music playing from a phone on the bed. Mr. Emeka walked in and stopped. "Ada, have you been here since morning?" he asked quietly. Ada smiled despite her tiredness. "Yes, Papa. Mama said we may have visitors this evening." Mrs. Ngozi stepped outside immediately. "Leave her. Ada is strong. This kind of work is nothing for her." Mr. Emeka turned. "And Chisholm?" Mrs. Ngozi waved her hand. "Chisholm is not built for this kind of stress." Ada lowered her head and continued stirring. She had heard versions of those words so many times she no longer flinched. But deep inside, each repetition left a mark that never fully healed. By the time both girls finished secondary school, Ada had accepted a certain kind of invisibility inside her own home. She poured everything into her studies instead, and when results came out, both girls had gained university admission. Ada had earned a place to study medicine. It was a dream she had carried since childhood, the white coat, the saved lives, the quiet dignity of becoming someone whose work truly mattered. For one brief moment, joy filled the household completely. But the joy did not last long. It never does when money is the problem. 3 evenings later, Mr. Emeka spread papers on the sitting room table. He removed his glasses slowly. "I cannot comfortably sponsor both of you at the same time." Silence swallowed the room. Mrs. Ngozi let the quiet settle. Then she turned and looked directly at Ada. Something deliberate lived in her eyes. Something decided long before this conversation began. "Ada," she said calmly. "You are the older one. In every family, there comes a time when the older child must carry the weight so the younger one can move forward." Ada's voice came out carefully. "Mama. What exactly are you saying? Let Chisholm go first. You can wait 1 year. Maybe 2. The words landed like something dropped from a great height. Ada looked toward her father. He looked away. She looked at Chisholm. Chisholm stared at the floor, saying nothing, offering nothing. Why is it always me? The question escaped before she could stop it. The room went completely still. Ada stood up slowly. I need some air, she whispered and walked outside. That night, she sat behind the house under the open sky, holding her admission letter with both hands. Tears moved quietly down her face. Through the window, she could see Chisholm excitedly packing clothes for school while their mother helped fold dresses neatly. Mr. Emeka found her there an hour later. He sat beside her in silence before speaking. Your dream is not dead, Ada. It feels dead, Papa. His voice broke slightly. I know. But I need you to trust that this is not the end of your story. Ada folded the admission letter carefully and placed it in her pocket. She did not cry anymore that night. Something inside her had shifted. Not broken. Just rearranged. Before we continue, if this story is already touching your heart, please share it with someone who needs to hear it today. And if you have not subscribed yet, do it now. The years passed the way hard years do, slowly and without mercy. Chisholm graduated and returned home wearing new clothes and the confidence of someone who believed the world owed her a celebration. Mrs. Ngozi hosted a party and told every neighbor her daughter was now a graduate. Ada congratulated her sincerely. Whatever bitterness she had once felt had long since turned into something quieter and more determined. Because while Chisholm had been in school, Ada had been building. Her small trading business had grown steadily. She had a loyal customer base, a savings account, and a quiet confidence that needed no one's approval. And that picture, Ada thriving without a degree while she, the graduate, had not yet found stable work, planted something in Chisholm's chest she was not wise enough to remove before it rooted. One evening, Ada returned from the market carrying a small envelope. She sat beside her father and opened it carefully. Inside was a letter confirming her acceptance into a part-time nursing program. She would finally be going back to school. Mr. Emeka read the letter slowly. When he looked up, his eyes were wet. Ada, he said softly. Ada smiled. I told you I would find a way, Papa. From the sitting room window, Chisholm watched them. Her jaw tightened. She turned away before either of them could see her face. That night, while the house slept, Chisholm sat on the edge of her bed in the dark. The scholarship fund Ada had built over 3 years, saved naira by naira from early mornings and late market nights, sat in an account whose details Chisholm had quietly found weeks earlier. She had told herself 3 times over 3 weeks that she would not touch it. But jealousy had kept whispering. And that night, the whisper became a decision. Ada discovered what happened on a Tuesday morning at the bank. The teller looked at the screen twice before turning the monitor toward her without a word. The account was empty. Ada stared at the number for a long moment. Then she walked home slowly. When she entered the compound, Chisholm was sitting outside eating. A new phone sat face up beside her plate. New shoes on her feet. A wristwatch on her wrist that had not been there the week before. The world became very quiet. Chisholm. Her voice came out flat. Chisholm looked up and quickly arranged her face into confusion. What? Where is my money? What money? My scholarship fund. The account is empty. Chisholm exhaled like the question was an inconvenience. Ada, I needed it. I was going to replace it. Ada's voice stayed low. 3 years, Chisholm. 3 years of waking before sunrise. 3 years in the market in the rain. 3 years of saying no to everything I wanted. Her voice did not rise. It became quieter. And you took it. Chisholm looked away. I said I'll replace it. Ada looked at the phone. At the shoes. At the watch. Something in her face closed completely. She turned and walked inside without another word. Mrs. Ngozi's response was perhaps the most painful part of the entire story. She listened. She folded her arms. Then she said quietly, "Ada, you know your sister. She made a mistake. Let it go." Ada looked at her mother for a long moment. Then she nodded once and walked to her room, sat on the edge of her bed, and stared at the wall in silence. Please share this video right now if you believe sacrifice should never go unrewarded. And drop a comment, should Ada have forgiven her sister? Tell us what you would have done. What happened next was not revenge. It was simply life moving forward the way it does when a person refuses to stay buried. Ada filed a formal complaint. The bank traced the withdrawal. Chisholm eventually admitted what she had done. She was ordered to make full restitution. It took 2 uncomfortable years to repay every naira. The business investment she claimed to have made had already failed. The phone grew old. The shoes wore down. The watch sat in a drawer. Ada used the returned money to complete her nursing program. She graduated 3 years later with only her father in the audience. He cried from the moment her name was called until long after she walked off the stage. Mrs. Ngozi did not attend. Ada became a nurse. Then a senior nurse. Then she pursued further qualifications until the white coat she had dreamed of as a girl was finally, quietly, hers. Not the way she had imagined. Later than she had planned. But fully and completely earned. The last time anyone saw Chisholm and Ada together was at their father's funeral. They stood on opposite sides of the compound throughout the burial. They did not argue. They did not speak. When the final prayers were said, Ada walked to where her mother sat and held her hand quietly for a long time without saying a word. Mrs. Ngozi wept that day in a way that had nothing to do with grief for her husband alone. Ada left the village the following morning. She sent money home every month. She called her mother every Sunday. She never once mentioned Chisholm's name during those calls. And when people in her new city asked how she had become who she was, Ada always gave the same quiet answer. I decided early that my story did not belong to anyone who tried to write it for me. Sometimes the child a family overlooked becomes the one the family eventually needs most. Sometimes the dream that was stolen survives simply because the person who held it refused to let it die quietly. What do you think? Should Ada have fully forgiven her sister after everything that happened? Or are there some betrayals a person can acknowledge without ever truly releasing? Leave your answer in the comments below. And if this story moved you, share it with someone who needs to be reminded today that their sacrifices are never wasted.